up, guys? This is Anthony, and I'm here to bring you the review for Borderlands The Pre-Sequel. Now, if you didn't know, I'm a pretty big Borderlands fan, so when the Pre-Sequel finally got a date, I was just as excited as any other Borderlands fan. Now, of course, just like everybody else, I have reservations that Australia 2K would be headlining this, but, still the 2K team, so I have faith. Now, was that faith misplaced? Did this game suck? Or was this game just as great as the other Borderlands games? Well, here's the review. So this time around, the story is that you work for Handsome Jack to check out a new vault found on the moon. Unfortunately, the Dog Corporation has decided, we're going to blow up the moon. And now it's your mission to stop her. That seems to be more of the story than the story that we were told, which is the origin story of Handsome Jack. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, if you're going to tell us one thing, focus on that thing as opposed to the other. But I digress. That's not really my problem here. My problem with the story are some of the characters, particularly the new ones, like Janie Springs and Nurse Nina and Pickle. So, they're not bad. They're just not as good as what we're used to. You're either going to say to yourself, well, this character is just a ripoff of that character. Or you're going to say, well, this one just wasn't as good as that one. That happens a lot, or it happened to me a lot. I mean, some of the old cast does come back, like Lilith, Roland, and Moxie for some reason, who's stationed up on the moon. Well, let's not ask too many questions here. But, they make a pretty good performance. It's just not so big of a performance that I can say that the story was, engrossing and all that. It told a good story. It was just, they didn't have enough good characters to hold it up. Or so I think. And that's really all I have to say about the story. Moving on. So now let's talk about the gameplay. Now, if you've played Borderlands, you know what to expect. Guns, more guns, crazy guns, insanely powerful guns, and really weird guns. And this game gives you all that and then some. The new laser weapons and cryo weapons, I cannot tell you how much I love the cryo weapons. I can't tell you how much I love the lasers. They are a great addition, and I wish they would have been introduced sooner. But hey, we have them now, and that's what matters. So playing the game is always as great as it has been. Now, my only gripe is with this new oxygen system. To some, it won't be much of a big deal, but in some occasions where you're in big shootouts, whether it's by yourself or with friends, and you're more or less pinned down until you clear out the field, if you don't have a high enough capacity Oz kit, which is what you're going to need so you can breathe, you'll soon feel the sting. And, it's not as if it's a huge consequence. It's more of like a minor annoyance, because if you lose oxygen, you start losing life. And as you lose life, you get it back once you hit some oxygen. So it's kind of like you have two oxygen bars, which, sometimes doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The Oz kit seems to be there more so to give you the ability to butt slam, which is, you take that at your discretion. I'm not a huge fan of it. My particular best times in gameplay is with the incredibly insane guns you get, particularly my favorite one. I forget its name. I just know it's a shotgun, and it speaks a lot of obscene Australian things to you. It's pretty fun, but it's powerful. It eats up ammo, and it shouts obscene things at you, but it's powerful. That's just a taste of what you're in for if you play this game. Yes, your gun will shout at you, and it still won't be the weirdest gun you've ever picked up. So if this is your first Borderlands game, prepare to be weirded out by what you're shooting. Alright? Alright, okay. So as far as the audio-visual aspect, music has never really been Borderlands' strong point. They've always had it, but it's more or less been muffled out by the sounds of gunfire, which sounds amazing in this game, as it usually does. Your shotguns sound powerful. Your machine guns sound, the pew 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 pew. All the gun sounds are appropriate. Now, a funny little thing I think is that a lot of the voice acting is Australian. I personally just think of the moon as, Australia because it was developed in Australia. So why not have most of the voice actors in Australian? I find it kind of funny. It's just a thing. The voice acting is done very well. I find all the voices as believable and or as ridiculous as the series has always been. I am glad that they kept the original voice actors because sometimes when you get a new developer, a lot of things change, and here it didn't, and that made me quite happy. So, that's not much to say about the audio. Oh, well, as far as the visuals, they look the same way all the other Borderlands have always looked. Great, cel-shaded, moves pretty well. My only thing about it is that when the action gets really heavy, and it always will, there will always be these times where you just get hit with a wave of enemies. The frame rate sometimes slows down and it gets incredibly choppy, especially if you're in fight for your life mode where things are already blurry and things are just happening and you don't understand, explosions and just garbled up graphics. That's my only gripe with the audio visual aspect, I suppose. Other than that, it looks and sounds as great as it always has. To wrap up this review, I don't know how much I can say about it, only because this wasn't like some kind of brand new Borderlands game. It's the same Borderlands you've always played, just with not as many great characters and with a new double jump butt slam system that, for exploration purposes, it changes the game a little bit, but as far as the actual gameplay, it's more of an annoyance than anything, especially with the whole, oh, you only have this much oxygen. If you don't get to an oxygen thing, then you're going to lose breath. That would be a lot more relevant if you just died when that happened, but there's really no consequence to losing oxygen, so why even have it there? So, with all that aside, I would still advise this to any fan of the Borderlands games. If you're not a fan of it and you just like shooting things, well, this is still a pretty good game for you. I just don't know if this would be the great game to start with. I would definitely tell you, if you're not a fan, start with one, see if you like it, especially since it's cheap. But if you're a fan, definitely pick this up. I would advise it to anyone who says, I like Borderlands. So, I'm going to give this a solid B. I'm going to give this a B, and the only way this could have been better is if they had better characters. I'm just not even going to care about that whole Oz kit system. I just wish the characters did better in this storyline. The characters you play as are great and all, but the support characters are usually what brings the Borderlands experience together, at least for me. Those characters like the old Vault Hunters in 2, they made that story awesome because they were involved, because they were exciting, they were awesome. These characters, they're not as involved, they're not as awesome, they're not as cool, and they're not as likable. Other than that, yeah, get this game. You'll love it. And yeah, enjoy yourselves. This is Anthony, out.